You want all this pimping you can't afford. Perform like a punk but want a winner's reward. Some suckers give you points but bitch you never scored. If you ain't paying pimping then bitch you getting ignored. Okay, I'm so sick of these.
Now I know despite whatever I say, people are gonna have their opinions about me and about my opinion itself. But the way my pimping is set up, I really don't give a damn. Yet and still, I'm gonna give my disclaimer just to give you a better idea of where I come from and where I stand on what I'm about to say. I'm not at all in favor of dating underage girls or having, intimate relations between grown men and underage girls, or just grown people and underage people, period, no matter which way you slice it. I'm also not bashing homosexuality. I'm not speaking down on homosexuality. I'm just giving you an example of the way things were in the past versus the way things are right now, to give you an idea of the social engineering that's taking place and the way that y'all being puppeteered. A lot of you, not everybody, but a lot of you are being puppeteered and manipulated into thinking and seeing things the way they want you to think and see it. But back in the days, right, if you go from the 90s and even further back, but most recently up until the 90s, it was a normal thing for grown men to mess with underage girls. It was such a normal thing, and that's why a lot of people didn't have a problem with it back in the day. See, a lot of y'all, especially young people, you can only see things from the way you see it right now and the way things are today. And today, yeah, it's seen as a terrible thing. But back in the day, it wasn't seen as such a terrible thing. And that's why you probably ask yourself, like with the whole R. Kelly situation, well, how come some people didn't have a problem back then and they have a problem now? People that was around them, or, just people who were old enough to know the situation back then. How come they weren't upset with him back then, but they upset with him now? Why didn't they speak out then, but they speaking out now? The reason why is because it was still seen as like a wrong thing, so to speak, but it wasn't seen as a terrible thing because it was so normal, right? It was normal for, if you were in high school back from the 90s on back, to see a grown man pulling up to the school, picking up a 15, 14, 16-year-old. You dig? When I was in high school, it was a Mexican girl in my drama class. She was 14 years old, and she had already been married for 2 years to a grown man, a man who was old enough to be her father. Married to him, yet she was still going to school. You know what I mean? She still was cool with her family. The husband was cool with her family, all of that. I remember, situations where teenage girls would get picked up in front of the school, not around the corner, not down the street, not in back of the school, in the front of the school. Girls was being picked up by grown men where staff and other students and everybody could see it, and it wasn't a problem because, like I say, back during that time, there still was laws against statutory rape and things like that, but it just wasn't seen as a terrible thing back in those times. When my parents first started dating each other or what have you, my dad was 19, my mom was 13. My mom got 9 brothers, most of which are older than her. So she got a good 7 older brothers. And my mom lived with her parents, my grandfather and my grandmother. My pops would come to the house, pick up my mom, and it wasn't again, he wasn't pulling up down the street, around the corner, in the alley. He'd pull up in front of the house. You know what I mean? All my grandparents and all of my uncles knew him. They knew how old he was. It wasn't no secret. And they knew that he was coming to pick up my 13-year-old mom at the time, and it wasn't a problem. You dig? This is back in the 70s, before I was born. But nonetheless, it was just a normal thing, not just in one particular walk of life or one particular culture, because a lot of people like to put it on different things like, oh, you know, all the pimps back in the days was having teenage girls, or all the Catholic priests was messing with underage boys or underage people, or whatever the case may be. As far as grown men being with underage girls, it was customary to see in the hood. It was customary in entertainment. It was customary pretty much in whatever walk of life. It just wasn't seen as such a terrible thing. Now, on the flip side of that coin, when you talk about homosexuality, that was seen as a very terrible thing. It wasn't nearly as accepted as it is now. It wasn't nearly as normalized as it is now in 2019. Back in the days, you wasn't seeing a whole bunch of homosexuality on TV and in media and things like that. When you was a kid in school, you wasn't just seeing a whole bunch of like just openly blatant homosexuality in school. Now, when I was in school, when I was in high school in the 90s, yeah, it was a few, like it was like two gay dudes that I can remember, but and they weren't in a relationship with each other, and they didn't promote the fact that they were gay, but everybody pretty much knew that they were gay. And whoever it was they was in a relationship with, you wouldn't catch them holding hands and kissing each other in public, or I never even seen either one of them with a boyfriend. It was just a known fact that they was gay, and they didn't deny it, but at the same time, like I said, they didn't promote it. But the bottom line is, homosexuals back in the day, they received a whole lot of persecution. They received a whole lot of ridicule. They were they received a lot of brutality. You know, y'all probably, young people, y'all probably heard of something. You probably haven't experienced it really or seen it, but it was a thing back in the day called gay bashing. That was very real, where motherfuckers would get together and go bash gay people just because they was gay. So, like I say, back in the days, when it came to homosexuality, that it wasn't cool. Society at large seen that as a bad thing. In fact, back in the days, homosexuality was seen as a mental illness. It was a mental disorder, clinically, to be gay back in the day. Just to give you an idea of how society seen homosexuality back in the day. But again, fast forward to 2019, it's all good. Everywhere you look, you see homosexuality. It's not a problem. Ain't nobody talking bad about it. It's just a very normal and accepted thing in 2019. So just to give you an idea of the way things are, like I say, back in the days, a grown man dating an underage girl wasn't a big deal. And you can ask anybody who's 30 and above, if they keep it real, they will agree, and they will let you know the same thing. If they don't, they full of shit. You dig? And you don't have to take my word for it, but this, I'm speaking on what I know because I was around back in the days. I was a teenager back in the days when girls my age was dating grown men, and it wasn't a problem. You dig? So that wasn't a big deal back in the days, but homosexuality was. It was a real big problem for gay people back in the days. But fast forward to 2019, it's the complete opposite. Dating an underage girl now in 2019 is a terrible thing. You know, not just in the eyes of the law, but just society at large. Everybody pretty much agrees that dating underage girls for a grown man is terrible. You dig? Not just bad, but it's terrible. You dig? Back in the days, some people might disagree with it, just like with anything in life. But for the most part, nobody made a big deal about it. Homosexuality, they made a big deal about it back in the days, but nowadays it's so normal, it's not a big deal. You dig? So, why is that, you might ask? Well, my take on it is, as far as homosexuality being normalized, the LGBT community has just become very influential and very powerful. There's a lot of people within that community that are influential and powerful, and they use that influence and they use that power to normalize things to the point where now you have gay marriage. Back in the days, nobody would have imagined that gay marriage would become legal. Nobody would imagine that in a million years, even gay people themselves. If you ask somebody that's gay, that's been gay for a good 20 years or longer, they will tell you the same thing that I'm telling you right now. They never imagined being able to get legally married. But here it is now. Not only can they be legally married, but again, like I say, in all different forms of media, homosexuality is just there, and it's not a big deal. You did, and like I said, back in the days, it was considered a mental disorder or a mental illness or what have you. In today's times, it's not. And like I say, all of that is because, just my personal take, the LGBT community, like I said, they've used their power and their influence to make it where, you know, they can live at ease. And I ain't mad at it, you dig? But it is what it is. They've just made it so that homosexuality is normalized to the point where you know, they don't have to worry about, because back in the days, if you was a gay person and you was in a gay relationship, like two gay men in a relationship, they couldn't just walk down the street and hold hands. Probably in certain areas, you dig, like where I'm from, Long Beach. In Long Beach, there's a community called Belmont Shores. And Belmont Shores has always had a big gay community. You dig? The gay community is pretty big and well known in Belmont Shore. Now, it's always been all good to walk through Belmont Shore. Like it wasn't nothing unusual, even back in the days, to see two gay men holding hands or two women holding hands back in the days in Belmont Shore. But anywhere else, like in the hood or in the mall or at a football game or a basketball game or something like that, back in the days, you're not finna see two gay men holding hands and kissing each other in public for everybody to see. They wasn't doing that back in the days because they knew the potential of people getting on their helmet and getting violent with them. You dig? But 2019, it's all good. You can see that anywhere. Anywhere you go, in the gym, in the mall, the nightlife, whatever city you live in, you go to where all the clubs and bars is, it's all good. You dig? So I can understand why, you know, they would want to make things comfortable for them to move around freely and not have to worry about things and look over their shoulder, what have you, and all that. You dig? But on the flip side of that coin, when it comes to grown men dating underage women, again, it wasn't a big deal to see a grown-ass man walking through the mall with a 14-year-old girl, a motherfucker in his 30s, walking through the mall with a 12, 13, 14-year-old girl, and that's his girlfriend. Or just walking down the street and they holding hands or kissing or doing whatever at the movies or you know, anywhere. It wasn't a big deal. But in 2019, if you get caught doing that, it's going to be a big deal. You're going to have the police on your bumper. You might even have certain motherfuckers trying to attack you and get violent with you, the grown man in the situation. You dig? But ultimately, like I say, what it all boils down to is social engineering. The media and the powers that be, they're using their influence and their power to get you to think the way they want you to think, accept what they want you to accept, persecute what they want you to persecute, disagree with what they want you to disagree with, agree with what they want you to agree with, so on and so forth. You dig? And the best thing to do when it comes to things like this is just, have your own mind. Just because the wave is going this way don't mean you got to go that way. Just because it seems like the cool thing to do to bash R. Kelly right now don't mean that you got to be on that. You dig? A lot of y'all don't even really analyze the situation and really think about things from a factual standpoint. Like, damn, yeah, you got these girls on this documentary crying and they look real convincing and they sound real convincing. But at the end of the day, everything that they're saying has no concrete facts behind it. Nothing has been proven about what they're saying on that documentary. It's all just hearsay, and it's very believable because of R. Kelly's history. But just because his history is his history doesn't mean, like I said before, that they got a license to just lie on a man and make things up and all of that. So like I say, the best thing to do is just have your own mind when it comes to things like that. But just another tablespoon of game, food for thought. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell when you subscribe. And as always, put some love in your life, man. It's H2O. This is love right here. Put this love in your life one time, you dig? I holla.
I ain't no better, I'd say you tryna seduce a pimp. That coochie is Gucci, but you can't make me overuse it, bitch. Just hit her with some reverse pimpin' psychology so she can make a move and we can get to some biology. A pimp gotta cover his tracks, that's all a part of it. So when she blame a pimp in our argument, bitch, you started it. Bitch, I'm gon' fuck on you, 'cause you been down getting a pimp's money.